What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more PGA DFS picks and lineup advice for FanDuel and DraftKings. This time for the 2023 AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. If you're new here, welcome. If you've seen our videos before, welcome back. What we normally do in these PGA videos every single week is we talk about the event itself, any distinguishing characteristics. We talk about the weather, how that impacts our DFS lineups. We review the betting markets to see if any sharp sports books are telling us anything about golfers we need to have in our lineups. And then we'll review some projected ownership as of Wednesday, talk about the chalk plays, who is chalky, who is not. And as always, we need those sub 5% plays in our tournament winning lineups. So we'll give you a couple here on the show. Before we get started, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, get notified when we go live for any sport, upload these PGA videos every single week. Give us a thumbs up if you like the content and want us to see more of these PGA videos. Any questions, I will monitor the YouTube channel throughout the next 24 hours or so. Comment on the video below and I'll get back to you. Any questions, comments, concerns, favorite plays, we'd love to hear from you. You can also join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. Link is in the description below. Always put a lot of last minute betting market information in there and you don't want to miss that. So let's get started with the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So similar to the Amex a couple of weeks ago, if you watched that video or played that event or watched that event, you know that the professional golfers played rounds with amateur golfers. In that event, you basically had to be rich and pay like $30K or more to get a spot and play with these golfers. This one is more of a celebrity Pro-Am. So these golfers will be playing with celebrities over 3 rounds. And like the Amex, though, there will be a 3-course rotation. Let's bring up the PGA Daily Plug, occupyfantasy.com. Our writer, Niramata, who's one of the best PGA DFS players that I know. He comes in every week and gives you his favorite plays, which have been crushing so far to start the season, and basically how to attack a PGA DFS slate. He also goes into the course info for the tournament, and it's especially helpful when we have 3 courses on the menu. So Pebble Beach, Spyglass, and Monterey. Now, basically, it's like the Amex where the golfers will play each of these 3 courses Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We will have a cut after 3 rounds instead of 2 rounds as we normally do. And then all the golfers will return to Pebble Beach for the final round on Sunday without the amateurs this time. And so naturally, this creates some imbalance for showdown and potentially the weather. And the weather is especially interesting this week because it is on the coast, unlike the Amex where it was in the valley, and sometimes wind can affect that, but the wind did not affect it on that specific day. We do have, let's go here, let's go back to our favorite trusted wind source, windfinder.com. And we see on Thursday, when the tournament starts, we do get some pretty late winds after 1 p.m. So golfers towards the end there will catch it. Now again, because this is a 3-course rotation Pro-Am, tee times are condensed like it was at the Amex, so wave splits aren't necessarily as important. If we scroll down to Friday, nothing really in the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. window. Saturday is where it gets tricky. We see pretty heavy winds basically from noon on Saturday. And then Sunday, pretty consistent 15-mile-per-hour gusts throughout the day. So first and foremost, you want golfers who are comfortable in these sorts of conditions, especially if we expect them to make it to Sunday, right? But also with most of the wind coming on Saturday, at least as of now, and again, I'm recording this 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. That's 24 hours basically before the tournament starts. A lot can change. So you need to monitor this and adjust your strategy all the way up through tomorrow morning if you have the time. But this dilemma of the heavy wind on Saturday reminds us just of last week, where on this show we talked about potential wave splits, where last week it was, because they started on Wednesday, it was Thursday. Thursday had the heavy wind, and the question was, do you want your golfers playing the harder course in the heavy wind and being able to rack up birdies on the easy course, or do you want to play the easy course in the wind and have a better time with the wind there and play the hard course in not windy conditions? So it wasn't a huge advantage last week, but if you played the easier course in the wind last week during the Farmers, it was about a 0.2 stroke advantage. That's sizable, right? But the question here is, which course do you want to play? Spyglass is considered the most difficult of the 3, but it's also the furthest inland the 3 and less susceptible to the wind. So, all this being said, I really don't have a clear angle as of now how we want to stack this if we want to stack this. But I'll give you the same advice we gave last week. If you're playing multiple lineups, it is a worthwhile consideration to stack different ways in your subsets of lineups. So let's just say you're making 20 lineups, right? You build 10 normally. Build 5 more that stack the guys playing Spyglass on Saturday. I'm not sure if that's going to work out. If the wind hurts the other players on the coastal venues, or you want to play the harder courses on non-windy days, then you have an advantage. Or you stack guys who are playing Spyglass on Thursday or Friday and have the easier course on Saturday. Again, there's no real telling. Maybe by tomorrow morning we'll have a better belief in which course we want to play on Saturday. But if not, splitting your lineups up into those wave splits are the best way to do it. So what I did last week, I built 150 lineups. I built 100 normally, as I normally would. Didn't consider weather. I built 25 stacking the Thursday golfers on the easy course, and I built another 25 stacking the hard golfers on the Thursday course. And there was a little bit of an edge in one of those subsets, and that could be the same case here. Now, once we get out of these crazy pro-am 3-day events, course rotations, we'll be able to take advantage of these wind splits much more easily. But this early in the season, when we have these crazy events, it's a little bit tougher, and it's a little bit more difficult to nail down a strategy. But again, you can take subsets and build it, and if one of those waves are right, you'll have a subset of your lineups that gets the advantage. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go back to DraftKings here. All right, so I think that covers it all for the event and the weather. Again, this event, 3 courses. The courses are relatively similar in the sense that it's a little bit harder to hit the greens. You'll have a lot of short approach shots. You need to be great around the green. You need to be great on the green. And on these West Coast greens, same type of guys we talked about last week. Distance doesn't matter whatsoever this week. It's one of the shortest courses that these guys will play. So distance does not matter. So guys that you looked at last week, minus the distance angle, should fit this week as well. All right, let's move on here and let's talk about the betting markets. And unfortunately, like last week, there aren't many overlap plays to talk about just yet. If you've been watching these videos since the start of the year, you know that what we do every single week, we look at the sharp sports books, 3 or 4 that we respect. We understand how they move their lines for the most part. We understand what they mean. And by looking at which golfers' odds to win are improving at all of these sports books, clearly there are multiple angles, multiple people here, and the sports books are respecting it. And those are guys we want to get into our lineups. Now, last week, they did okay, nothing great. But this week, there's one golfer so far that has been hit at every single sharp sports book that we have taken a look at. And that golfer, it may surprise you, is Taylor Moore at 8,300. Now, he played last week at the Farmers, finished 11th. So similar setup minus the distance. We'd love to see that. If we go to our Occupy model, which ranks every golfer, FanDuel and DraftKings, has projected ownership. We'll have 2 more ownership projection updates tonight and tomorrow morning. But as of now, we have Taylor Moore projected for just 8% on DraftKings. And again, that's one of the best reasons to play these overlap sharp plays. Most of the time, they don't end up with outrageous ownership for whatever reason. And at just 8%, Taylor Moore. And if you look at what drives the model, he is one of the better putters historically on these types of greens. And again, it's very specific to these West Coast greens. So we'd like to see that. And we saw it last week with his T11 over at the Farmers. So Taylor Moore has been hit at every sharp sportsbook. I'm sure there will be more. Let's monitor that. I will put final moves in the Discord tomorrow morning. Our writer Nirmata will update the betting market with our Wednesday update in the Daily Plug later this afternoon. So make sure you check both of those out after you watch this video. But as of now, Taylor Moore is the one guy that has caught our eye in the betting markets. Let's say the Occupy model now, and let's talk about ownership as we close out the show here. And let's look at the most popular plays, how many there are, because that's always important as well. We see different dynamics when it comes to ownership. This week looks pretty normal. We have 3 guys as of right now projected for 20% or higher on DraftKings: Matthew Fitzpatrick, Victor Hovland, Maverick McNeely. We have a handful of guys, maybe 4 or 5, 15% or higher, which is that high owned threshold that we consider: Hoagie, Spieth, Power, Mitchell, Stallings. And that's about it. So realistically, if you play the Occupy way, the way Nirmata lays out in the daily plug, the lineup strategy section there, you can play this pretty straight up this week when it comes to ownership. The one guy that sticks out a little bit, I think, probably is Scott Stallings. And let's go to DraftKings, look at Scott Stallings' profile. Whereas all the other guys who are priced or who are projected to be 15% or higher owned are more expensive, more well-known names. Scott Stallings is the cheapest of the 15% plus group, and missed the cut last week. Not great. Maybe got caught on the wrong side of the win there. But Stallings really high in our model this week. Top 2, in fact, which is pretty rare for a guy like Scott Stallings. Speaks to the quality of the field, sure, but he rarely rates that highly. And Scott Stallings rates extremely high. He's getting a little bit of love in the betting markets. Nirmata wrote him up in our plug. In fact, we felt strongly enough to put Scott Stallings as the cover boy of the daily plug. Now, the one issue here is the ownership, right? When we wrote the plug, or when Nirmata wrote the plug yesterday, Stallings was a little bit under that 15% mark. Naturally, as betting markets are improving his odds to win, he becomes mispriced in a sense. If you look back at the model and we sort by DraftKings salary, this is a great way to find which golfers are mispriced, which guys you can expect to be higher owned in smaller contests and higher dollar contests. And just compare their DraftKings price to their odds to win, and you can see what stands out. So if you scroll down to Scott Stallings, 7,900, his odds to win at our partner sportsbook in Sugar House, New Jersey, is plus 4,500. No one else around him is near that amount, right? You have EVR right above him at plus 8,000. You have Brendan Todd right below him at 5,500. The golfer that's higher priced than him, that has better odds to win, is all the way up. Taylor Moore, 8,300 at 33-1. So Stallings mispriced technically because he's too cheap for what his odds to win say, which is why his ownership has increased over the past 24 hours. Now, the one thing is, it's Scott Stallings. It's not some amazing golfer. Weird shit happens in golf. And he's super cheap. Generally, cheaper chalk performs a little bit worse than more expensive chalk, especially in the 7K range. But he's not just chalk just to be chalk. We have other reasons to believe. Now, if he was 15% plus, didn't rate high in the model, wasn't getting betting market moves, wasn't written up in the plug, we'd be like, okay, we can fade that guy. I'm more inclined to play these chalky guys, even when they're cheaper, when they rate high in the model, when they're getting betting market movement, when Nirmata writes them up, like Max Homa last week. Obviously, he was more expensive and a better player overall than Scott Stallings, but he was one of the more expensive players on the slate, and I played him in 40-50% of my lineups because of all the overlap, all the different metrics, all the different resources were telling us that Max Homa was a great play. Same is happening with Scott Stallings this week. So now, if we're thinking about lower owned plays, 5% or less, as we talk about every week, these are the guys that help you win tournaments. Basically, every week, there's a sub 5% golfer in a tournament winning lineup on DraftKings and FanDuel, specifically DraftKings mostly. So let's look at 2 guys that are 5% or less projected as of Wednesday that we think can be in tournament winning lineups. So what I'll do, I'll go back up here to the top. I will sort by DraftKings projected ownership, and I'll use the filter here to look at 5% or less on DraftKings. And 2 names that stick out to me. One is Scott Piercy, who, like Stallings, rarely appears in the top half of the model. Piercy is top 8 or so. Our advanced metrics, we look at tons and tons of metrics. What helps a golfer fit this course, the length of time, the sample size, all that goes into play. We back tested it all. Piercy top 8. Really what helps Piercy in his model rating is his around the green play over the last year or so, in addition to his affinity for putting on these putting surfaces. Now, we're not going to always look at putting surfaces as important, but these West Coast greens are super predictive, and they're tricky if you're not used to them. Piercy rates very favorably on these conditions, and he ranks pretty highly, and just 4% on DraftKings. We'd love to see it. Another guy I'll give you, another name, Harry Hall. Haven't seen much in the betting markets for Harry Hall. Granted, he is 125-1 at Sugar House, New Jersey. But Harry Hall, and let's go to DraftKings. Corn Ferry Tour winner. We have him, let's actually go back here really quickly. We have him projected for just 2% on DraftKings. And got cut at the Farmers last week. Not something we'd love to see. But he has spoken at length about his affinity for this course. He said Pebble Beach is one of his favorite courses in the world. He's played amateur championships here. He has played all types of events at Pebble Beach. He has spoken again at length about it. And if you look at, he ranks relatively favorably in the model, top 20, top 25 for a guy that most of you have probably never heard of. To be very honest, I haven't heard of him really that much either. I'm not a huge golf guy. But Harry Hall checks a lot of boxes for a low owned play. High in the model. Let's monitor the betting markets. If we get just 1 ounce of betting market movement, we'll pounce on Harry Hall. So again, 2%. And again, not a guy that you have to get a ton of. If you play 3 lineups, maybe you play him in 1. Play 20, 150 lineups, play 10%. Now you're 5 times the field. That's all you need to do. You don't have to go crazy on these low owned golfers, unless all these angles are telling us to play them. But if you're looking for these guys like this, 5, 10%, certainly enough to get the job done. So I hope that helps. Gave you some lower owned plays, talked about the chalk, how I'm approaching the event from a weather standpoint, what the betting markets are telling us. There are going to be a lot of updates here in the next 24 hours. So what you want to do after you watch this video, you want to check out the Daily Plug and read Niramoto's Wednesday update. That'll post 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern. Updates the betting markets, Pinnacle Sports, sharp betting moves, any final thoughts he has. In the Discord tomorrow morning, I'll post the final sharp sports betting plays and who we want to get into our lineups. Projected ownership in the model will update again tonight and again tomorrow morning. That way you can build your lineups with the best projected ownership. We've been spot on for the most part this year and looking to continue that run. And then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get notified when we go live. All other sports, NFL, Super Bowl, we have tons of content next week. NBA every single day. UFC, if that's your thing. PGA every single week. Just subscribe to the channel. The YouTube algorithm, because we're putting out so many videos, sometimes it doesn't necessarily show you videos, even if you like them or watched them before, because we're putting out so many videos. But the one way to be sure that you see these videos again is to subscribe, and it'll show up in your feed every single time. So click the subscribe button below this video, give us a thumbs up, lets us know to continue to make these golf videos, helps others find the golf videos. Any questions, you can always comment on this video. We'd love to hear from you. Favorite plays, questions, lineup construction, whatever you want to ask on the YouTube channel below this video. I'll get back to you. But Discord is also the best way to reach us. So Brian Jester for Occupy Fantasy, thank you for listening, and good luck at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am.